Okay, folks, if we could make a start. Can I welcome all members of the public and members to the January meeting of the Combined Authority. I'd like to start by giving a particularly warm welcome to Councillor David Wesley, leader of West Lancashire Council. David, this is your first meeting as associate member of the Liverpool City Region Combined Authority. You're very welcome. I'm delighted you're here, and I really hope you enjoy your first meeting. I'm looking forward to working with West Lancashire.
Thank you much.
Thank you very much. So, welcome to David. Before moving into the detail of the meeting, there are a number of housekeeping points that I need to mention as usual. Can I remind everybody, please, to either switch off your mobile phones or turn them on to silent for the duration of the meeting, and to ensure that everybody in the chamber can hear the debate. Can I please ask members and those presenting reports to use the microphones? I'd be really grateful if you could do that. And then finally, as ever, the meeting will be filmed by officers from the Combined Authority and will be available on the Nosey Council YouTube channel later today. So just to remind you of that. So those are the preliminary remarks. Item 1 on the agenda is apologies. I think we have a couple of apologies.
Yes, Councillor Grimwald and Mayor Anderson have apologised.
Okay, can we accept those apologies? Yes, agreed. Thank you very much. Item 2 is declarations of interest. Can I ask if any members wish to declare whether any interests have been received?
None received, Chair.
Anybody wish to declare any interests? No? Okay, thank you. Item 3 on the agenda is the minutes of the last meeting of the Combined Authority held on the 21st of November, pages 1 to 8 on your agenda. Can I ask, are these approved as a correct record of the meeting? Agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. Okay, on to item 4, which is highways maintenance funding. This is our first substantive report, and I'm going to ask Frank Rogers to speak to this. Frank.
Thank you, Chair. Highways Maintenance Funding. This report sets out proposals for the reallocating of Highways Maintenance Capital Fund for financial year 2015-16 to the 6 districts of the Liverpool City Region. The funding has been awarded to the Combined Authority by the Department for Transport as the strategic body for the Liverpool City Region. The report also seeks delegated approval to allow the head of the paid service to oversee and to submit on behalf of the City Region a Highways Maintenance Challenge Fund bid ahead of the fund bid deadline on the 9th of February. This will be done in consultation with the Chair of the Combined Authority, the Chair of the Measures Travel Committee and the Treasurer of the Authority. Some background to the support of a group. Members will be aware that local transport authorities have traditionally received 2 principal sources of formula-based capital funding from government to improve local transport facilities. They're namely the Integrated Transport Block, or ITB, and Highways Maintenance Block. Integrated Transport Block bids are typically used for smaller sized capital projects such as highway improvements and walk and cycling improvements. The Combined Authority considered the report at its meeting on the 21st of November relating to the reallocation of the ITB funding block. And subsequently on the 23rd of December, the DFT announced the levels of highways maintenance funding being made available to local transport authorities from April 2015 onwards. The funds have been confirmed for the 3-year period from 15-16 through to 17-18, and they're as detailed within the report. The City Regions confirmed that indicative allocations from 15-16 to 2021 are shown at 3.6. Whilst these indicative allocations have been set out by DFT for each of the City Regions, the Combined Authority protocol on the creation of the CA did give a commitment in relation to government block funds, and that was that the combined authority will receive and manage the single city region-wide ITB and highways maintenance fund allocation from 15-16 onwards, and be responsible for the prioritisation and allocation of that funding. So as such, the funding is coming into the combined authority as a single block, recognising that the combined authority is the coordinating body for transport for the Liverpool City region. However, in the view of the DFT's late announcement, it is recommended that the funding for 15-16 is redistributed back to the 6 local highways authorities in line with the DFT's indicative allocations as detailed within the report, and that rather than looking to develop any agreed local criteria, they go as previously indicated. So that's defined in 3.9. That will allow the CA to consider its position on any alternative approaches to reallocation of funding post 15-16, but nothing will be done without any recommendations coming back to the CA for consideration. The maintenance form, as I said, takes the form of capital funding for local authorities. It's for maintenance of the public highway and associated structures, but it's not specifically ring-fenced. That funding there will enable each of the local authorities to develop their respective capital programmes for completion within their budget for this year. So, in conclusion, the report sets out the proposals for reallocation. It is as per the DFT proposals, and the report also seeks delegated approval for the head of the paid service to oversee and submit the Highways Maintenance Challenge Fund bid on behalf of the Liverpool City region. Happy to take any questions that may arise.
Okay, Frank, thank you very much for that presentation on the report. Members, anybody got any questions, comments, observations? Are we content with the recommendations? Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you very much. That's great. Okay, on to item 5, Growth Investment Strategy Funding Announcements. And I mean, one of the really positive developments over the last few months has been clearly our growth deal that we were successful in negotiating with government and the package of measures there. And clearly, you know, we are in the process of into delivery mode in a number of those schemes. And we've got some other scheme announcements that have come forward since the last combined authority meeting in November. So I think, Mike, you're just going to take us through a summary of all of those schemes.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Members will be aware that when we submitted the growth deal in spring of last year, we were seeking devolved funding to the city region for the combined authority and LEP to invest in major transport schemes and skills capital schemes. And the outcome of that process is on the agenda today. But we also lobbied government using this mechanism for funding from national resources. So just as a reminder for members, what we were attempting to do in the growth plan was improve our economic performance. So we concentrated on this £8.2 billion economic gap that the city region suffers from the national average. And when we mapped that through into the shortage of businesses and then the shortage of jobs in the economy, that has a direct impact on every person in the city region. Every person in the city region is £1,700 less well off on average than the national average. The city region has been performing well. Our economy has been improving. So these are the statistics we submitted when we put the submission in. ONS did revise their numbers late last year, so these need to be changed. But we made the point to government, our economy is performing well and is worth the investment. And we said that our strategy would be delivered by 5 key projects. So they were Liverpool City Centre as an employment hub for the whole of the city region, the Liverpool City Region Freight and Logistics Hub. So this is the collection of assets within the Liverpool City region and beyond, including West Lancashire, where the infrastructure we have, the road and rail infrastructure, means that the changing nature of the freight industry will invest here. LCR2 Energy was the ambition to be self-sufficient in energy within 20 years, and a key project for us was access to the Port of Liverpool. We also talked about creating an investment fund, and we're beginning to do work on how that would be structured now. We then focused on the enabling elements. We needed to get business support, the skills system, the innovation system, and that place our property offer right as well. In December, under the autumn statement, the government released its road investment strategy. So this is Highways Agency national funding to be invested over the next 5 years. And many of those schemes contribute to our freight and logistics hub project. So just to go back again, the nature of the logistics industry is changing. On the agenda today is a new freight and logistics strategy for the city region. We know that a significant amount of imports into the UK come in through southern ports, but are then processed in the north of England, which makes no sense in the national economy. So significant investment in our city region and market dynamics are creating jobs here. We also have a very significant set of assets. The map shows the road and rail and the canal and the river itself. These are key assets that can't be replicated anywhere else. And our logic in submitting the growth deal was to identify a series of schemes that would make the movement of goods more efficient. That is the slide presented to ministers in February. Every single scheme on there now is potentially fundable from the resources we've obtained, devolved to the city region. These are the schemes that we're asking the Highways Agency to fund when we lobbied in March. And every single scheme on this map is now being committed to by the Highways Agency. So it's a really successful outcome from the work we did earlier last year. We estimate through two sources. First of all, the LEP's own work, working with Oxford Economics on the economic potential of all of the key sites, the potential logistics sites. That could create up to around 20,000 jobs. Coming from the opposite direction, a piece of work we commissioned from NIA Hayward's, an international consultancy, looked at the market demand and estimated that there was 30,000 jobs could be created in the industry. So we're fairly confident that by enabling developments, we can create more jobs in our economy. So these are the schemes. So today, the Combined Authority will financially approve the Knowsley Expressway, Newton Le Willows, and access to Knowsley Industrial Park schemes. They will hit the ground in the new financial year. The other schemes on the left-hand column are schemes for which government has committed funding, and the ones on the right-hand column are where we are undertaking the business cases, and there is resources to be devolved to the city region to fund those schemes. On top of these were the city centre schemes that were funded. We've not concentrated on those in this presentation. There's over £50 million of transport funding for Liverpool city centre as well. So in total, the city region is receiving around 180 million of devolved transport funding, where the LEP will make a strategic decision and the Combined Authority will make a financial decision. On top of that, the announcements in the autumn statement are an additional up to, because these schemes have to be still properly developed, up to £700 million of further investment, meaning in total the growth deal now could have secured over £900 million of investment in the city region, which is a very positive message. Over half of all the Highways Agency funding for the next 5 years in the northwest of England will be spent on our city region area. So it's a hugely positive message for us to be conveying. More than happy, Chair, to take any questions.
Okay, thanks, Mike, for that very positive report. Questions, members? Comments? Ronnie?
Not a question, Chair, nor an observation. And some of the statistics on the screen were really interesting, and some that we've known about for a long time, but never had the ability to do much about it. The one interesting one that Mike put up on the screen was the 90% of imports coming through into the south of the country. Now that's nothing new to us, because that started to happen quite early on when we first joined the common market, and then further on into total entry into Europe. And businesses in the right minds, we're not going to send imports which could take 3 to 5 days longer by coming into the southern ports than into northern ports. Hopefully we are now starting to address that anomaly, particularly as the combined authority of the Liverpool City region grows and grows in strength, and some of the infrastructure that we are putting into our Liverpool City region, which will encourage imports to come into our northern ports. Thanks, Chair.
Other comments? Robert?
Yeah, just to build upon that without keeping self-praise on ourselves, I think this is an exceptionally important achievement to attract close to £1 billion of investment into transport, which is not transport for transport's sake, about enabling the economy to grow and to create new jobs. So that's my first comment. Beyond all this, we have high-speed rail, which we haven't yet touched upon this morning, but that of itself is a separate issue. In recent weeks, in this calendar year, we've been heavily engaged still with the Department for Transport and Secretary of State, with partners, with Mersey Travel, with the City Council, in those discussions to look at that direct link into Liverpool and via HS2 or indeed via HS3, east-west connectivity. So that's still very much part of it, and what we're describing here is that socket and plug, a socket where we create this network of connectivity around the city region, road and rail, and into which HS2 can then be the plug. This is about transport, Mike, a question for you specifically, because there's more to our plan than transport, and this round deliberately was focused on transport. Can you just enlighten us on what might follow in the next round of growth deals, and particularly around the knowledge economy and science, where I know we have been very active, just to counterbalance this transport initiative?
As members will be aware, we were tactical in our approach to the local growth fund process. Although we were told that government was creating a single pot approach from which you could bid for any type of resource, we recognised very early on that the majority of the resource in the pot is like the transport funding or skills capital funding, which is what we lobbied for to get our maximum share. Our hope would be that government creates a single pot going forward, and we think that then we would be able to submit things like the innovation plan, which is due to come to the combined authority in the next in upcoming meetings, into government to secure funding in our innovation infrastructure. We are very hopeful that within the next week or two, growth deal top-ups may be announced, and we are hopeful that that will be more flexible than what we've received today, so it will give us the scope to invest in land and property schemes, businesses that are looking to expand. So the disruption downstairs today as people enter is because of a new Inward investor that is moving into this building. They were supported by a funding pot we secured from Regional Growth Fund, and we hope to extend that funding pot going forward. So hopefully we'll get more flexibility in how we can invest local growth funds going forward, and that's the key thing for the city region to focus on.
And Chair, if I might just say, the Innovation Board itself has 12 major schemes in the science-connected areas there to bring forward, Mike, in the next round of local growth deal bids.
It does. There are 12 schemes being developed by partners currently for potential bids into governments and also for investment from the European programme. They include Daresbury, for example, Liverpool Knowledge Quarter and various other sites. So we are doing the development work to have bids ready to submit to governments, because that's been one of our challenges to date, is actually, as the resources become available in the centre, do we have the schemes ready to go? That's something we're beginning to focus on more and more.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. One sort of final question from me, or not point really, Mike. It's fantastic, I think, the positive, schemes that we've managed to negotiate, which is really good news for the city region. I think the big challenge now is delivery. So just kind of briefly outline for us, what arrangements are in place to make sure now we've got this fantastic programme, we can deliver them on time and to budget.
The members will be aware that the resources are deposited in the city region in the next financial year, and that will give us some scope to manage within that budget, put some capacity in place to ensure they deliver it properly. The combined authority gave a mandate to an officer group to actually scope out what that capacity might be at an early meeting, and that work's been underway. We have a reporting structure through the head of pay service of the CA, the CA being the ultimate risk holder for this funding. So we put that group together to start to map the capacity requirements and ensure we've got the delivery in place. We are highly commended by the government as a result of the work we've done on bringing schemes forward through processes. So today the combined authority will receive a paper on the first 3 schemes to delivery in the next financial year. Many other areas will not be ready to go on the 1st of April. The Liverpool City region will, because we've actually planned ahead and sequenced the work that needed to be done. So government side, we're green rated and ahead of schedule. So we're getting there with delivery structures. The challenge will be that as more and more resources might get devolved via this process, do we have the structures and capacity in place to manage a full range of funding?
Okay, any other questions or comments from members? No? Okay, so can I ask, I think we just received that report from Mike, and I'd just like to say a big thank you to Mike and the whole team for the fantastic kind of outcomes that we've seen from that process. So well done, Mike. Okay? Right, right, moving swiftly on. Item 6 is Year 1 growth deal scheme. So this report looks a seamless transition really from the last item. This report looks at the business cases for 3 growth deal schemes, as Mike has mentioned, to be started in 2015-16. And I think Liam Robertson. Liam, you're going to take us through this, please?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And as you just mentioned, it moves on very nicely from Mike's previous presentation, because effectively the report is just asking the combined authority to approve the business cases for 3 of the schemes that we want to crack on with, those being the 85300, the improvements to Knowsley Industrial Park, and also the development of an interchange facility at Nuclear Willows. I think the important point to make is when you look at the cost-benefit ratios, which you can see on page 18, they are all very high. But the transport guidance is that anything which delivers a BCR of over 2 is seen as exceptional value. And when you look at the A5300 being at 6.9, KIP being 2.9, and Nuclear Willows being 3.37, the BCR really does speak for itself. The report also mentions about further schemes in the pipeline that are going to be developed and business cases that will be coming back to you in the near future. We're effectively asking your approval to accept the business cases so that we can proceed with the projects and release them accordingly. We're happy to take any questions that might arise.
Thank you, Liam. Comments, questions, members? Roberts?
Just make a comment really, Chair. Thank you. I mean, Liam, you've done it very succinctly there, and those 3 schemes will go and will happen. I think this report is really underlying it. It's a very complex process indeed. It's really want to emphasise it's just the responsibility and the work's gone into it between partners. Prioritisation, the bidding process, the business case, and making it ready to move in 15/16. This has been exceptionally complicated on the go now for well over a year. And to achieve this like partnership working is what it's all about, actually a number of different teams and different bodies within the city region working together. And we know we have our challenges from time to time, but there are so many occasions when we work very, very effectively, and this is one, to deliver those 3 schemes as we have done in a very complex and challenging funding environment. I think it's a great credit to all concerned. I just want to make that point. Getting those schemes away this financial year is critical. Each of those, as Mike touched upon, are directly job creating, and again, it's not an exercise about transport per se, it's economic benefit beyond it. Just those 2 points, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Roberts. Any other comments? If not, can I just add my support to what Robert said? I think this is a really good outcome that we've got these 3 schemes away so promptly and got through all the process bits of the business cases, etc. So members were being asked to agree the business cases in the recommendation 2.1 for these 3 schemes. Are they agreed? Is that agreed? Thank you very much. Okay, that takes us on then to item 7, establishment of a collaborative inward investment service. And Jed, you're going to take us through this, please.
Thank you, Chair. You remember that at your meeting in September, I outlined to you the proposal to do this in 2 stages in terms of trying to move in a direction around the inward investment activities, recognising the resources, the expertise, opportunities and constraints around the this report now gives you a bit more detail and depth behind that set of principles outlined at that stage. Hopefully relatively self-explanatory, Chair, in terms of what's set out as a process and as a direction of travel. Ask you to obviously agree the recommendations if members are happy to do so, and specifically draw attention to the fact that there will be a proper full evaluation of the work arrangements at stage 1 of the two-stage process, which will come back here for you to consider and endorse and move in that direction.
Thanks, Jed. Comments, questions on this paper, members? Anybody want to say?
No, I think it makes sense, Chairman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Robert?
Yeah, I think this was discussed at the LEP board meeting held in December, this paper. And I think that, first of all, the board were very keen that this should happen swiftly. And it is a two-stage process, as you described there, Jed. But I think the feeling of the board was just to reflect this morning, just to convey this thought to you. There was a clearly embedded intention that this should be a phase 1 followed by phase 2, and therefore it shouldn't be a question of then stop back and review. There was a desire to see both stages happen. And I just want to leave that thought with you. It is important to get to stage 2. It shouldn't then be forced and let's stop. It is an idea that this should be a journey we should continue right through. And that was the feeling of the board, or our LEP board in December, just to convey that thought to this meeting today.
Thanks, Robert. David, yes, please.
If I may make
Yes, by all means.
a brief contribution, this is something we were interested in West Lancashire. One, I have a question. In terms of contribution, can it be assets in kind brought to it? And West Lancashire would be interested at an officer level, perhaps having some sort of form of involvement in this, to see what we can bring to the table with mutual benefit.
Okay. I'm sure on the latter point that will be welcome. But Jay, can I ask you to come back on this?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Obviously, in terms of official conversations and officer kind of contributions and so on, very much welcome that we pick that up. It's been, as you might imagine, quite difficult to get to this particular stage of the process. In terms of the assets in kind, we're all trying to assemble the most comprehensive product offer that the city region and its neighbouring areas can provide in a global context. So the point about product and offer and sites and premises and all those kind of things, absolutely part of the portfolio. But the reference to the resources in this report has been more on the staffing side in terms of making sure that we've got enough capacity to be able to both push the message out in terms of what the city region and neighbouring authorities has got available, but also hopefully to be able to convert those into activity on the ground through this kind of mechanism. So the resourcing point was more about the staffing side, but I'm happy through Kim to make that up separately.
Okay, David, that answers the question. Any more points on this report? I mean, can I say, I think we can welcome this report. I think this is a sort of tangible example of these combined authorities, city region working collaboratively, which has got to be the way forward. So I think in terms of the direction of travel, we should absolutely endorse this. I just want to suggest, because we're all coming up to budget setting time, I think in terms of recommendations, it would be useful, Jed, just to have fleshed out at some point, in the next few weeks, the resource kind of implications for all our authorities, because I think we need to know what they are, so that we can take them back and hopefully get them approved. So maybe if I can ask you to do a bit further work on that with the other chief execs, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, more than happy, Chair.
Great. So, members, can we approve those recommendations? They agreed? Thank you very much. Okay, and that then moves us on to item 8, the long-term freight strategy. And again, Jed, you're going to take us through this report, please.
Thank you again, Chair. This dovetails to the earlier contribution that Mike Palin made in terms of presentation and the emphasis on the importance of freight and logistics in terms of potential growth to the city region. It also mirrors something that the combined authority has already approved, which is already well underway in terms of the detailed development of it in terms of the short-term freight strategy, which kind of builds on the Liverpool 2 growth potential, links to the HS2 point that the Chair of that was making a minute or two ago. What we have suggested as well as trying to sort out the short-term issues, we really do need to be mapping out what the longer-term kind of opportunities, but also constraints that will need to be managed around in order for us to achieve exactly that kind of growth that we're looking for. And we recognise that the best way of doing that is through a study, the scope of which is suggested here, and with the active support of organising travel, both financially and in staff in terms, we're in a position to be able to take this forward. So we're asking you to endorse that outline scope, and of course it will be brought back in more detail as the study starts to get underway.
What's the timescale, Jeff, for the study?
It's partly dependent on who's available to undertake the study. So, but and our own capacity, as I say, to be able to actually initiate it. So I think it's a matter of maybe 12 months before it, six to 9, before it kind of be ready to be brought back for detailed discussion.
Okay, members, any comments or questions on this report? Do we think this makes sense, Robert?
Yeah, just to build on what Jen has been saying. I mean, clearly this is about playing to our strengths. It's a sector we have huge competitive strengths in the market, massive barriers of entry, and therefore an area which we're investing in. And therefore, to see this report brought forward and defining this long-term strategy is actually key and vital for our economic future. It's not just about goods to market, it's about getting companies closer to the port of Liverpool and the other area for transit of goods, attracting that investment, and it's about the growth. It's not purely about that question about mere transport of freight itself. I think it's probably the most important opportunity to create new investment and new jobs. It's also important for the whole North of England. We've heard before about the 90%, 10% margins around the importation containers into the UK from southern ports. This is vital, what we're going to do here, not just for the city region of Liverpool, but also for that wider northern story, the Northern Powerhouse story. And it gives us in that context, that seat at the table to press home our strengths in the context of that Northern Powerhouse, HS2 and HS3. So for all those reasons, I think it's particularly important locally in terms of jobs and economic growth, but it gives us that presence, those arguments, the levers why HS2, HS3 should be connected to Liverpool, but more than that, how we can be the port for the North of England, and beyond that, influence and bring forward that Northern Powerhouse story most effectively. So I welcome this. I hope we can get a swift conclusion to this and find a way forward and invest accordingly and get the funding from government to support it.
Okay, thanks, Robert. Any other points on this report? So are we content to agree this study and the recommendations outlined by Jed in section 2? Are they agreed? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, that takes us then on to item 9, which is the Skills Capital Investment Fund. Another important part of the growth deal that we managed to negotiate was a £41 million skills capital pot. And Sue Jarvis, you're going to take us through an update on this and how the fund is progressing.
Thank you, Chair. Skills capital funding, this was a £41 million investment as part of the City Region's growth deal. It was something that we asked for around 30 million of investment, but we were successful in securing 41 million. And the slide shows there are 4 strands how this funding will be allocated to sites and premises, improved facilities, equipment, and a low carbon fund. The low carbon fund is being worked up by a specialist within the LEP, so there are not really any details of that in the paper today. That's something we'll bring back to you at a future meeting. In terms of previous allocations of skills capital, this was done nationally by the Skills Funding Agency and primarily targeted at FE colleges. As part of this new process, approved training providers will also be able to bid into the pots for this money, provided that they comply with state aid. So it's a slightly different process we've got moving forward. Just got a few slides here just to give you a bit of a flavour of how the funding's been spent in the past. And across the city region, we have 7 FE colleges, and they've received varying degrees of skills capital over the years. And we look back to 2001, and I think over the period since then, it's been almost 100 million skills capital grant that's been invested in ones on there, the Hubert investment was around 2.8 million to improve some of the facilities. A much bigger investment, 16.9 million, recently to the City of Liverpool. The college as learning exchange, which provides a hub of learning facilities, a cafe, resource centre, sports facilities. And the bottom picture there is an artist's impression of what will be happening with Rural Metropolitan College, which is their new waterfront campus. This will be part of the enterprise zone and will be focusing on the construction skills required for Wirral Waters, so very much fitting into the economic needs of the area. It's very important that the skills capital investment is seen to be able to achieve the City Region's wider growth ambition. And to help applicants, as part of this process, we've developed a prospectus, and that's included within your papers at page 84. And what the prospectus will do is provide some sector-specific information that comes from our City Region Skills for Growth agreements. And this will highlight the particular skills priorities that we're looking to support with this money. It will also focus on the growth sectors where we know there are key priorities coming up, but we'll also have a look at some of the high volume employment areas, such as care, for example, where we know that there will be job opportunities moving forward. There are other areas that are included within there that have come from employer demands linked to skills such as IT and leadership and management. So there's a range of areas that we'll be trying to target applicants to. Good buildings and efficient estates are also part of the priority setting, and it will be important that those colleges and providers applying for this funding can demonstrate good quality of learning provision, so that we put some funding into those that are already performing well. It will be a competitive process, and as part of that there'll be a benchmark of 2-to-1 co-investment. That is the desired intervention rate. We will be able to be flexible if there's a compelling case made as part of the bidding process. The governance arrangements for this will be important to get right, and the funding, as I've already said, is part of the City Region's growth deal, so will be subject to the assurance framework in the same way that the transport projects that we've just heard about will be subject to an assurance framework that will be signed off with government. What that means is we need to be able to demonstrate we have effective arrangements for the governance, for the value for money, and for the decision making. And given the nature of the employment and skills sector, we've got to make sure we avoid any potential conflicts of interest, and so we'll have a clear split between the Commissioner and the Commissioned. And as part of that process, we're proposing to introduce a Skills Capital Investment Board that would have representatives from the combined authority of the LEP and the Employment and Skills Board, considering bids from colleges and providers. Anybody sitting on that board would obviously not be able to be a college governor or have a seat around the table as a private training provider. The next couple of slides, I just want to really give you a bit of a flavour of the sorts of schemes that we could be funding moving forward. Strand 1, 22.6 million, is targeted at sites and premises, and we've got two elements to this strand. One to cater for smaller innovative projects, and one to deal with larger scale reconfigurations or new builds that may come forward. And in terms of the types of potential projects, these could include an upgrade of science and technology laboratories, for example, engineering workshops, or they could support an expansion of provision that's maybe targeted at emerging markets like low carbon. It's very much growth orientated. Strand 2 is specifically about improving facilities, and it's important to note that this funding will be the only route that FE colleges can access capital funding to improve their estate. So there's 4 million ring-fenced specifically for that, and it's important that we safeguard the current college estate that we've got across the City Region. And just to give you a feel for the extent of that, currently the colleges are supporting in the region of 45,000 learners across the City Region, so it's important that we have a safe, efficient environment Strand 3 is equipment, and this will be open to both FE colleges and accredited private learning providers, and this could support the updating of equipment provided that it's meeting industry standards in the growth sectors, and it could also support the purchase of equipment to deliver new forms of training that's demanded by employers. A few things just to draw your attention to that are in more detail within the report. This is all capital funding, so we haven't got any revenue funding to support the design of the programme. However, there is some mitigating action. We've been able to draw down a free opt-in offer from the Skills Funding Agency nationally, so there will be some support provided to us in terms of the technical and financial appraisal process for these bids, and some support in guidance, documentation and paperwork. In terms of the final decisions on any investments that go forward, they will sit with the combined authority in the LEP as part of the wider governance of the growth deal. And a few headline risks to draw members' attention to. Obviously, the delivery risk of getting this moving and getting the expenditures spent in that 2-year time frame that we've got. That will be picked up as part of the wider growth deal. There are also legal and reputational risks, and the investment process needs to be seen as open and transparent, and our proposals for a separate skills capital investment board are a way of addressing this. And then the programme management will be an ongoing need with that to have a mix of professional services, legal, financial and surveyors to be able to make sure that the right sorts of capital projects are being delivered to time. So just quickly in terms of the next steps, the strategy and the school scheme rules, we're intending to launch those as an event on the 4th of February that we were inviting FE colleges and learning providers to. That will allow the expression of interest window to go live from the 5th of February, and we've got a 6 to 8 week period for applications to be developed. But we recognise some bodies may be more advanced than others, so we're introducing a fast track process, so applicants could actually submit a full bid at the same time as an expression of interest if they felt confident enough to do that. And we're looking to have once the EOIs have been returned and appraised, deadlines for full applications in August, with projects starting from either July for a fast track or from September onwards, if everything goes to time. So just skipped over the recommendation there, it's too quick. Sorry for that. Happy to take any questions, and the detailed recommendations and response there on the slide.
Thank you very much, Sue, for that presentation, taking us through that report. Members, questions? Robert?
Yeah, just first of all, you made fantastic progress, Sue, in a short space of time. This is a new field for us in many ways to enter into, and I think it was a pleasing £41 million to be allocated and be spent and invested very wisely, but to have gone so far so quickly is a great credit to you and your team. Secondly, I was pleased to see the balanced approach to what's proposed, both to investing in unsatisfactory current estates and investing in new buildings where appropriate. Appendix A on page 94 is particularly interesting to me because this sets out the various sectors of opportunity and predicts the employment demand in those new areas of investment, for example, around low carbon and financial and professional services. And you'll have this in mind when you decide where the group decides where this investment should take place. On what basis was that information obtained in terms of future projected employment in those key sectors?
Come from a combination of groups and is captured in our skills for growth agreements, but the figures have come from the economic forecast and the employment forecast that the LEP commissioned as part of the growth deal, so very much aligned to the economic figures we have for our city region. And we've also, through the LEP's sector panel, had conversations with key employers to get their take on the future direction of certain sectors, and we've played that back with training providers as well, just to sense check what that would mean for future types of provision. So well informed as we think it can be.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, and any other points? Can I just, I mean, I think it's a really exciting programme, Sue, but are we, you know, have you got any kind of advanced sort of information? Are schemes being kind of developed? Are we confident that we'll have a good pipeline of projects coming through when we launch this fund?
As part of the growth deal process, we did consult with colleges in particular to see if there were any projects out there, and there are. You know, some have been there for a while, some are more innovative, some new ideas coming forward. And because we've kept the providers informed throughout the process, they're still indicating that there will be sufficient schemes to come forward. There'll be more about updating existing facilities rather than big new major schemes, and probably that will be as much about funding that's available within the sector, because they're going to have to match some of this on a 2-to-1 ratio as we move forward.
Okay, any other questions for Sue? No, if not, can I thank Sue for the presentation, and can I ask members, can we agree the recommendations in the report at paragraph 2? They agree? Thank you very much. Okay, sticking with employment and skills, we've got item 10, Liverpool City Region Employment and Skills Board. Refresh, and this is Sue again, please.
I'll stay up here even though I've not got a presentation, because I'm conscious of where I've sat and I'll be talking to the backs of people. The City Region's Employment and Skills Board was established in March 2010 to lead on strategic employment and skills on behalf of the City Region, and this fits into both the combined authority remit, but also from an employer perspective, the local enterprise partnership. And last summer, a review of the board's activities and membership was undertaken to ensure that it remains fit for purpose, and not least in the light of the new responsibilities we're now picking up with the skills capital, but also the board has a policy role in terms of the 78 million European Social Fund Inclusive Economy Fee. So it's important that we look at our membership and make sure we don't have potential conflicts of interest moving forward. So to support this approach, the reviews recommended revised membership arrangements that are set out in the report and some new terms of reference, and for these to be put in place before April this year to make sure that we can move on with these new responsibilities. As part of the review, the key messages that came from Employment Skills Board members and stakeholders was that the board performs an important and valuable function. Some of its key achievements are set out in the main body of the report in paragraph 3.4 on page 106. Section 4 of the report sets out in detail the proposals moving forward, and as part of this, the proposals for the membership of the new board. There's a consistent view back from stakeholders that the size of the current board should be reduced. So the proposals we're putting forward today are based on comments from key stakeholders that the board would be made up of 6 business appointments and 6 council appointments, and this would be supported by 5 non-voting members from the employment and skills sector. And the report's recommendations, they're on page 105, section 2.
Okay, thank you, Sue. Right, so questions, comments? Ronnie?
Thanks, Bill. I think it's a timely report, Chair, because of the way we want to move the Employment Skills Board forward. And I know when you, like any structure of any organisation, when you start to make some changes for the betterment, some people will always feel that the nose is being pushed out. Why haven't we got a seat at the table? We don't feel that we're fairly represented. Well, I can honestly say in this Liverpool City Region, Chair, that is certainly not the case. Every organisation, every business, every individual can feel confident that they are well represented around the table. sometimes if you don't review these boards that you set up, you just keep adding and adding and adding, and then it becomes unmanageable and it becomes a talking shop. And I certainly don't want to be part of a talking shop. I want to be part of a board and a group that can deliver objectives in a quick time frame. And I think this report says exactly that we can do that, and I fully support this report. Yeah.
Other comments?
Just to say, Chair, this is coming to our board, the Met board, next week, and if I won't make any comment at this stage, that's all right. Even though the commission point is absolutely a point of principle which has to be addressed.
Okay, so any other comments, members? So we're being asked to, Sue's gone, summarise the membership, terms of reference. You've seen the detail in the reports, the recommendations for this refresher in paragraph or section 2. Can we agree those recommendations, members? They agree? Thank you very much. Thanks, Sue. Okay, that then takes us on to item number 11, which is the review of combined authority arrangements. I think we always said when we set up the combined authority that we would need to undertake a review, and David Brown's going to take us through this report. David?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, as you quite rightly said, when we created the combined authority in April 2014, it was agreed that within the first year we would carry out a review of the working arrangements. I think a number of the reports today have highlighted the need to review both working arrangements, which the Employment and Skills Board have already done, but also reviewing how we've got the right capacity in the right places within the working arrangements to make sure that we can deliver on those commitments we've heard about today. There's no doubt that we've been very successful in the last year delivering funding bids and securing funding. And to maintain that success, we need to ensure that the governance, the working arrangements and the capacity are fit for purpose. It's intended that we carry out a fairly speedy review of those arrangements through the Chief Executives group to ensure that those working arrangements are fit for purpose. So we're intending to do that in March this year, and then bring back any recommendations to the combined authority in time for any changes, particularly to constitutional agreements, to be included within the AGM in June. So we intend to work through both the Chief Executives groups and the individual subgroups, although the employment skills have concluded their review, to do that in a timely fashion to report back during the period of the new financial year for any recommendations to be included in the AGM, Chair. So the recommendations that I've sent you to.
Thank you, David. Makes sense? We're happy with those proposals. So recommendations are in item 2. So can we formally agree that, members? Agree? Thank you very much. Thank you, David. Okay, our final item, I just need to, item 12, the minutes of Mersey Travel Committee held on the 11th of December of last year. Can I just ask members if we can confirm these minutes? Are they confirmed? Thank you very much. Okay, that concludes the business. I've not been informed of any other urgent items of business. So I just need to say thank you, everybody, for your attendance, contribution to the meeting. Can I just remind you that the next meeting of the Combined Authority will be at 11 a.m. On Friday the 13th of February, so I hope that's not a bad omen, but Friday the 13th at 11 o'clock. However, one final item I do need to draw your attention to before we close. This is Carol Hudson's last meeting. I'm told it's your last meeting before you retire, Carol, Chief Executive at Helens. And it would be remiss, I think, of us if we didn't record our sincere thanks to Carol, not just for the fantastic work you've done at St Helens over many years, but also your contribution to the Liverpool City region in a whole range of different policy areas. I know you've done a lot of fantastic work in housing. I know you've supported me a great deal on the European funding agenda, which has always got its challenges, but you know, I think we need to say that, you know, you do leave a real kind of lasting legacy, both at St Helens and the City Region, and Mike Palin as your successor. I'm sure Michael will do a fantastic job, but he's got a really hard act to follow, can I say. So Carol, can I just say on behalf of, I'm sure, everybody in this room, a big thank you to you for your work over the years, and you know, really very best wishes for your retirement. Thank you very much, Carol. Thank you. Okay, folks, can I thank you for your attendance and close the meeting? Thank you.